Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post, publisher of more than 1,000 comic books and marketing expert covering woke panic as world's largest HR association drops equity from DEI. Let's get into the story. Before we do, please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate you guys. Coming from Twitter, the largest HR association in the world, SHRM. And they are massive. They have almost 1 million followers on LinkedIn alone. They've just announced that they're dropping equity in DEI and reverting back to inclusion and diversity. HR people are losing their minds over it. SHRM says they're making this big change to address the current shortcomings of DE&I programs, which have led to societal backlash and increasing polarization. And there are a lot of crazy comments on this, people getting really upset that equity is no longer officially a part of DEI. First, what's human resources? Human resources is the division of a business responsible for finding, recruiting, screening, and training job applicants. HR departments also handle employee compensation, benefits, and terminations. In addition, human resources are in charge of arranging interviews, coordinating hiring efforts, and onboarding new employees. Also in charge of making sure all paperwork involved with hiring someone is filled out and making sure that everything from the first day to each subsequent day is navigated successfully. Does any of that have part of trying to create equity for different races and sexual preferences and religions inside of companies? No, it has nothing to do with that. That never belonged as part of a function in human resources. However, human resources was inundated with the inappropriate pushing on companies to incorporate discrimination, what they call diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's where the diversity officers came from. Diversity, equity, inclusion is quickly becoming a thing of the past. Here's their announcement on LinkedIn. Quote, "We're going to lead with inclusion because we need a world where inclusion is front and center. And that means inclusion for all, not just some people. Everyone has a right to feel that they belong in the workplace and that they are included." Today, SHRM announces an important shift in our approach to inclusion and diversity. Effective immediately, SHRM will be adopting the acronym I&D instead of IE&D. This strategic decision underscores our commitment to leading with inclusion as the catalyst for holistic change in workplaces and society. As SHRM President and CEO Johnny Taylor Jr. shared in his main stage address, this new focus highlights SHRM's role as the foremost expert and advocate in workplace inclusion and diversity. By emphasizing inclusion first, we aim to address the current shortcomings of DE&I programs, which have led to societal backlash and increasing polarization. If you're thinking that the woman on my thumbnail is very upset about this, well, she is, and that's why she's on the thumbnail. While we shift to I&D, our commitment to advancing equity remains steadfast. Equity will be integrated under the broader inclusion framework, continuing to be a priority in our strategy and leadership decisions. SHRM is excited to lead this initiative as the next step in our enduring commitment to fostering better workplaces and a better world. We encourage you to adopt an inclusion-first approach within your own organizations and join us in creating meaningful change. Let's drive change together. Adopt I&D today and be part of the movement. What actually is equity compared to equality, and why are they getting rid of it? Equality is where everyone has an opportunity to succeed. Yes, if you're a tiny child, you can one day grow up and be as tall as your big brother. Eventually, you could be as tall as your dad. But with equity, we try to create an unrealistic situation where everyone gets to be an adult as soon as they're born. That's what equity is. In reality, equity doesn't work. And that's why it's being canceled out of this major organization. With this major organization, of course, it's not just about them and their company and their employees. It's about all of the certifications they do. If you're going to be an HR professional working at a company, you're going to get a certification from SHRM. They're the ones that say, yes, you've got this certification, you're qualified to practice. And there are other organizations, but this is the main one. They have influence over many people, many companies, hundreds of thousands of companies worldwide. So this is a major hit to the equity agenda. When they say this is the real equity agenda, everyone equal, everyone getting the same opportunity, somehow supplied by the company, Somehow a company is going to help you be taller? As if a company was able to actually figure out, how do I make every individual person here succeed, even if they don't belong with this company because they don't have the talent? Instead of that nonsense, which really only results in this, going from equity in theory to everyone failing at the company, equity in reality, they go back to what's realistic, which is to take equity out of the picture completely, try to give people an opportunity, but put them in a position where they can succeed at their job. And if they can't succeed at their job, it's not the fault of the company. It doesn't mean you don't have enough equity there. It doesn't mean the company hasn't invested enough resources in that employee. It means that person needs to go work somewhere where they're qualified. And time for some sassy comments from Megan Pollock. This is another data point that shows SHRM is detrimental to our profession because of their inability to tackle real problems that HR people face. Equity is a difficult conversation because it requires everyone to acknowledge that there are historical and systemic injustices that create barriers for many. Why would everyone have to acknowledge that? Maybe everyone could just go to work and actually do their jobs. Maybe they don't have to believe in any theories or concepts of social constructs. Maybe if you're a salesman, you could just sell. If you're a dock worker, you could work on a dock. If you're an accounting professional, you could just keep track of the actual accounting going on at the company. And if you're worried about equity, you're worried about the value of the company, not trying to push a communist agenda. She continues because no one's stopping her. Striving for equity is impossible unless we talk about it and give it the space and attention it deserves. There's no inclusion without equity. They are not the same conversation. If you've ever heard of the white savior complex, that's when white people are going out of their way to say, I'm your hero, supposedly. I'm going to save your life. You can't make it on your own. If this isn't the white savior complex, then what is it? Employees reacting to the overturn of Roe v. Wade was also a difficult conversation many HR people had to navigate. Again, human resources people are not there to talk about Roe versus Wade. That's not their job. They can pretend they're that important, that they're like some spiritual advisor to discuss politics and where they fit in the universe. But that's not really their job. Their job is just to be like finding, recruiting, screening, and training new people, as well as supporting existing people, but not along their spiritual journeys. The complaining continues. HR people had to navigate Roe v. Wade conversations, and that problem was one SHRM decided refusedly to provide resources on. So you want an SHRM to take a position on a Supreme Court decision that really has absolutely nothing to do with human resources. All they could do is say something political that would upset a huge percentage of the people working for the company, no matter what side they were taking on the political divide. COVID-19 restrictions were another challenge that SHRM would not provide clear guidance or support on. Growing calls to increase parental leave result in challenging conversations HR people have to navigate. Hard to turn to your largest governing body for help when they literally lobbied against FMLA. Family medical leave. SHRM has a pattern. When the political pressure is on, they sidestep, they ignore, they obfuscate, and they rebrand. Just because they don't want to talk about something doesn't mean it goes away. From L.A. Ebert, what's needed first and foremost is not inclusion, it's justice. Justice and equity are the calls to action. Diversity, access, inclusion, and belonging are products of justice and equity. Again, L.A. Ebert, your job is not to do any of this. Your job is not to create justice top down from a person's place of employment. You're not a governing body at a company. You don't even have the authority to make changes that would accommodate any of the things that you're saying that you want to do. What are you going to do? Just triple someone's salary because their ancestors did this or their ancestors did that? You can't do that. You have to pay people based on merit, and people have to perform once you've hired them. She continues, first of all, not everyone feels unsafe in or faces access challenges to the world. Including diverse people, or everyone as you put it, without justice and equity is just inviting those who have suffered the most for these causes to be further harmed. How disappointing. There really is a limit to what your employer can do. Your employer cannot right the world where every employer is off doing their own thing, trying to create justice. This is the most ridiculous direction that the United States has ever gone in, that I can remember. None of us who've been working professionally and doing professional work over the last several years could ever have imagined things could have gone in this direction. Creating human resources departments was something that was a good thing. Sometimes it can delve a little bit into the personal, but not when you're trying to go and push a social agenda as if company was government. Company is not government. And 95% of what these companies have been doing to try to create social justice and inclusion in the world has been illegal. It's actually been against the law of the United States. And that's why at some point, SHRM, with all the lawsuits coming down, had to turn around and say, okay, we're not going to keep doing this. We're not going to certify that this is appropriate when we could easily be challenged on it. Patricia Gatlin says, the reason why so many of us can't move forward because systematically you will push narratives that will exclude things that advance us. Not quite sure what she's saying, but let's go on. I wonder who complained about this enough to make you all agree that removing equity would be easier. No, equity will be the approach. It was always the North Star. We're not going backward with you. We're not doing that. Well, Patricia, you can go wherever you want to go, but the lawsuits from the actual companies that actually employ people are stopping all of this. There's lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit. Hollywood just first started getting sued. Even Hollywood is questioning the future of DEI. From the Hollywood Reporter, DEI is not DOA, at least not yet. Conservative activists are taking aim at race-based grants and programs designed to help members of marginalized communities. Will philanthropies soon find themselves in the crosshairs? Yes, philanthropies are already being sued. And these grant programs designed to help members of marginalized communities illegally discriminate against other people. For example, women of color being able to get grant money to invest in their business only because they're a woman and only because they're of a certain color are they allowed to apply. So white women need not apply, Asian women need not apply. Of course that's not legal, and of course that's not continuing. We see that lawsuit featured in Edward Bloom versus the Fearless Fund, which has already had a big win in that case. The case isn't over, but it's nearly over. Of course, it's not legal, and of course, it's being stopped. It's just one law-breaking HR professional after another. Woo, this takes the cake for taking a step backwards. I mean, I just cringe reading this, as I was immediately transported to the numerous hats worn, meetings led, focus groups held, and so many more activities I engage in for the pursuit of fair and equitable workplace practices. There is no extra pay for this extra work, but many of us are motivated because we know we can drive change, even if it's only a ripple in the water at first. Many HR professionals have made it our priority to advocate for DE&I efforts and address the inequitable systemic undercurrents, although addressing systems goes beyond the HR function. As I was trying to explain earlier, at least she's aware of it. She didn't need to listen to my video to know it's not her job to do this. Although addressing systems goes beyond HR function, that doesn't mean enforcing equity should be deprioritized. Instead, it's a great opportunity to show the value of HR as strategic partners with other areas of the business. And not only are they hiring people that are not qualified, they're hiring people that are tinkering around with who is and who isn't qualified to do their work, which they know nothing about. Where they say, oh, you've got to push diversity, so put this person on this team. Give this person this job instead of that job. When the whole function of the company is there to serve its customers and make sure that it makes money for their stockholders, as well as the rest of the stakeholders in the community, which would be people not involved in the business, but people involved in the community, schools, government, other businesses. None of that works right when you mess with it to try to create a social change that, of course, you know nothing about, even if you mean well. And while the person doing this work may not be being paid extra money to serve this ridiculous function, they are being paid some salary with some benefits to do a job that they're not focused on if they're doing this other nonsense. She continues, without addressing the inequitable systems that directly impact opportunities for true diversity and inclusion, can this organization truly be seen as an industry leader and expert? Yes, of course they can. That's why they're in the position that they're in. Fundamentally, I think not. I have so many questions. Very curious to know if they did any change impact assessments to guide this decision-making. I don't even want to know what HRM thinks of DEIB and DEIBJ acronyms. Anything with an E in it has got to go. They're not going to create equity in society. It's not even being done consistently across companies. You have to do something in a consistent way and measure results. And that's when you're doing something appropriate. All of this was completely inappropriate for companies to be messing around with. And from Elizabeth Liba, quote, "We're going to lead with inclusion because we need a world where inclusion is front and center." Here's her comment. "I'm still baffled about how I will have inclusion when I'm not even being considered because of racism. Or did we forget about systemic racism, discrimination, and oppression?" All of their social concepts about systemic racism and all the rest of the nonsense, it doesn't add up to anything. You've got to be qualified for the job, or you shouldn't be on the job. No excuses. Unless you read an article in Forbes. From Forbes, "Why Skills First Hiring Alone Will Not Improve Diversity." This is insulting. How could you say that someone of a certain color or a certain gender or sexual preference or religious affiliation is unable to develop skills so they can get a job? Why would you want someone to get a job they don't have the skills to get a job for? Well, this is Forbes, and they have a lot of articles like this. Recent efforts from employers such as Apple, Walmart, and Cigna to eliminate degree requirements have been heralded as a boon for equity. These efforts have potentially opened job opportunities for more than 80 million Americans without degrees, many of whom are people of color. However, hiring bias, race-based earnings disparities, and occupational segregation will not magically disappear with these new approaches to level the playing field for more candidates. Already, they're removing the requirements of having a degree to get certain jobs. Why should you have requirements to have a certain degree if you want to get a certain kind of job? Partly, it's expertise in that field. If you want to go into marketing, you should probably have a marketing degree. It doesn't mean you have to have a marketing degree. It just means you're going to have to work your way up more and show what you can actually do if you don't have that degree. Not that having a degree means you're automatically going to get a good opportunity. You still usually have to earn that opportunity, but a degree can help. A college degree shows that you can make it through the process of studying, following instructions, working hard, functioning competitively with your peers, that you've succeeded where some other people haven't succeeded. That's the way that an employer knows, okay, this person is serious about their future, so I'll give them a shot. Because every time a company hires someone, they're making an investment, they're taking a risk, and they're hiring you instead of hiring someone else. So to reduce that risk, they create certain standards to hire people. So removing all those standards, that's not quite good enough. He continues, "Not all skills are valued equally in the labor market." In other words, if you know how to make a pizza, that is a good skill, and I love pizza. But if you're a brain surgeon, you're going to get paid more than making a pizza because there's a lot that goes into being a brain surgeon, and it's a very high-pressure job. If you don't do it right, it's not like dropping a pizza on the floor and then picking up another pizza and making another pizza. If you don't do brain surgery right, someone could be damaged for life or die. There are lawsuits. It's a much more serious issue. He continues, "There's a hierarchy of economic value of skills, and there are stark racial and gender patterns to which groups possess highly valued skills and which do not. Qualitative and computing skills, for example, are more valued than caregiving skills. Consider data science. It's one of the top jobs touted as not requiring a 4-year degree. Data scientists employ statistics and scientific computing skills. Earning an average salary of $106,000 a year, 64% of data scientists are white, and nearly 80% are men. Only 4% are black. Caregivers such as home health and personal care aides employ a range of skills on the job, including interpersonal communication, problem solving, and negotiation. They earn a mean annual wage of $33,000. Black workers comprise 12% of the workforce. However, they comprise 22% of the nursing assistants and home health aides. Black women are significantly overrepresented in these roles, making up nearly 14% of healthcare workers, despite being only 7% of workers. Despite their high value to well-being, caregiving skills are not rewarded financially. And we see the nonsense of diversity, equity, and inclusion finally being taken down by big, serious human resources organizations, which means it's going to be taken down in multiple companies throughout the world, because it's the companies that get the certification for their HR employees from these human resource organizations. If they say stop it with the focus on equity, focus on diversity and inclusion, it's a big deal. It's not the end of the road to fix this ridiculous agenda, but it's a major step on the end of the road. Everyone agrees it's a great idea to give people opportunities to let them succeed in a company, If people actually go and work for a company and they develop their skills at a company and they're rewarded and they feel successful at that company, it's a big part of their identity. It's a big part of who they are and how they see themselves. That could be a really loyal, productive employee. And to accomplish that, it's all based on merit, not based on skin color. It's about your attitude, what you do when you're at the company, and how the company treats you when you perform for that company, when you're successful at that company. And then, as it always has been, if it's not a good fit for you at that company, if they don't appreciate what you can do for them at that company, you can go take those skills and work at another company. It's merit. It's not based on skin color. It's not based on race or even religion. Diversity, equity, and inclusion for SHRM, the biggest HR association in the world, is now a thing of the past. And the impact will be massive. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another story. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.